Replenish Nutrients is an agricultural bioscience company specializing in regenerative and sustainable fertilizer solutions. CEO Neil Wiens is outlining this year's plans and expectations with the Beiseker facility achieving full operational capacity and the company's ongoing growth plans. It's Wednesday, March the 26th. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Neil, it's great to have you back. I'm shocked because it's been almost 3 years since we've last talked. That's gone by fast. News flow has been pretty quiet from you over that time until recently when you announced the ramp up to full production at your facility. Obviously, you have been busy in the background, and now you have the fruits of your labor to show for it. So why don't you please tell us, what have you been up to?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the bonus here is it has been 3 years and I'm still here.
Yeah,
So I guess there's
that's
number
true.
one, so there's number
Surviving is
one.
always the base case scenario you want.
It is the
Yeah.
base case scenario. So, there's number one. But yeah, what we've really been up to over the past year and really the lack of news is because nothing's really that terribly, for lack of a better term, sexy. We're sitting here, it's Agriculture 101. We are an agri-science thing. So, as I just mentioned to you in our preamble, agriculture is based, especially in Canada, on a 1-year cycle. We don't have the option of growing 2 other crops over the year because for some reason there's this thing called winter. So at the end of the day, we've been working on our efficacy. We have been working to complete our patents, ensuring that our production patents and everything actually fall into place. I'll be honest, I mean, we're a year later than what I anticipated, which is kind of the reason why we've taken a year off in news more than anything. Is just, no news is, and not good news nor bad news. But at the end of the day, we really did manage to get everything together, piece together things that we had in place from our own systems, and got to a point where now we're ready to turn on the switch and produce at full production.
Please tell us about the Beiseker facility. What is going on there? The production. What are you producing? And farmers are going to buy it, but I guess which type of farmers and how does it get applied? And tell us all about your product and your production.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll give you a little bit on the Biceker side. So Biceker itself was our pilot facility. And so we've spent the last 2 years on making sure that we could keep, the whole idea of our product is using mineral nutrients along with biology to release those mineral nutrients in a timely release fashion for the crops, whether it's your tomato plant, whether it's your grass, or whether it's wheat and canola that we really aim for in the commercial market in Western Canada. So the biggest thing that we've had to do and deal with is ensuring that those microbes that we actually inject and have indigenous to the whole scenario stay alive through the process. And that's been the main scenario of how do we physically do that over time. And that's what we've been working on in Bicycle. So the background of that, we were from the pilot stage to this commercial stage. We realized that some of the things we did a year and a half to 2 years ago had a larger footprint than what we really required, especially once we learned how to deal with them. The wonderful thing about creating process patents is there's no Google manual that says thou shalt do this. And so we couldn't just go on and say, hey, how do we do this? Because we're new. This is new IP. So once we realized what we had there on some of our larger things, we just were able to right size our whole system to go from a 2 ton per hour type process that we had last year to what is actual a commercially viable 5 ton per hour process right now, which then gives us up to 24,000 tons a year of production. So that's what we've been doing in Bicycle. The thing that we were going to do, and the reason we are behind, is we had a few of those scenarios that we didn't know the equipment 100% last year when we shut down production. But what we have managed to do as far as a company is utilize our own internal people and also our own internal equipment. So we had a stranded asset that we inherited from the Earth Renew days over to Replenish side. And we were able to actually utilize a bunch of that equipment in that stranded asset over into the new facility, new upgrades of Beiseker. And instead of costing me $2.5 million to the shareholders and debt and everything else, we're actually down to only $1 million upgrade by the time we're said and done versus the 2.5. So although I've been quiet, Martin, over the past year, we've actually been saving the shareholders money. We've been doing it internally. We've gained $1.5 million on the budget, and here we are today, ready to turn the switch on.
It's a little nerdy and maybe not that relevant, but I'm just curious on the product itself. The fertilizer you're selling actually is like a probiotic. It's got little animals alive in it, and then your nutrients in there help then grow in the field. Do I have that right?
That's a great way of putting it. It is
Okay.
100% like a probiotic. So if you take a look at the soil and what we've been doing, is fertilizer for the last 70 years, especially on the commercial side, has been through a chemical process. And this creates a chemical salt. And when you end up doing this on a continual basis, is you start to decrease your microbial and soil health population. So what we've been doing, and part of that nerdiness, is you take these little granules, and although it has rock phosphate and elemental sulfur and potash in them, it also has calcium, magnesium, iron, a whole bunch of other micronutrients that we generally take in a multivitamin. But now I'm actually giving that multivitamin over to my microbes. So now what we've done is we've created this great little full meal deal package in a spot where my microbes, both fungal and micro and bacterial, can physically live throughout the process. And then as they hit the ground, your analogy as a probiotic is awesome, because what we've done is we essentially almost have a sick soil, and we're feeding it after we've had the flu.
All right. And given that it's alive, your fertilizer, does it have a shelf life, or does it have to be stored in a special way so that it doesn't kill the little bugs in there?
That's been the main process patent that we've been working on. The
Yeah.
majority of our competitors, or actually all our competitors that we have usually bugs that are, have a shelf life of 24 to 48 hours, need to get down on the ground.
Wow.
You mix them up, it has to get somewhere. What we've managed to do is I've been able to put this into a 2% moisture capacity. We have, of course, all of the sugars and organic matter keep them alive, but we put them to sleep because they have a lack of moisture. So what's good about what we've done is we haven't pasteurized it, but we put them to sleep. So we can keep this product, and we've done tons of testing, and part of the efficacy is holding this product for up to 2.5, 3 years, still send it over to the lab. And once they actually go through the RNA and DNA analysis, find out that we still have well over 1,000 identifiable microbes still alive in our product after even 2 years.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
so we don't need a huge shelf life. I mean, it can stay in a
Yeah.
jar.
Yeah.
It can
Okay.
stay in a bag. It can
Yeah.
be utilized anytime. So that's the bonus
Yeah.
of this.
There is a question here on how many patents you have, and I guess just before you answer that, maybe to get more into that, you talk about process patents. If someone just took your fertilizer and did all sorts of chemical and analysis on it, would they be able to see exactly what you do and replicate it, or is, as you say, there's a process to it? So even if you do a nuclear analysis and know exactly what's in there, you still don't know how you came to that step. So talk about your patent and your protected IP, and then the know-how, which you maybe don't patent, but it's hard to replicate from just looking at it.
Yeah, good question. So the first question is, right now we're on 3 different process patents, one for each one of our things. So we have our Rebuilder formula, our HESO formula, and our Super KS formula. So there's a process patent for all 3 of those. So ultimately, yeah, I mean, if anybody can definitely figure out that, hey, I'm just putting rock phosphate and sulfur together. along with some, some microbes. What the microbes are, they'd have to do some digging. We do have some microbes that are very unique to our process, which aren't in the patent wise. Those are hidden a little bit in the secret sauce of Colonel Sanders' recipe. So they are those that do some solubilizing of things like calcium, iron, magnesium, and the phosphorus. And so those are part of it. But as far as our process, it really is a matter of how do I grind down elemental sulfur? How do I not blow myself up at the beginning side of it all, although I have it in there? So, I chuckle about it, but yet we've, that's part of being the backyard farmer that we were forever, is we were able to do things and get it to a point where we could commercialize it without blowing ourselves up. So there was number one. Number two is how did you actually keep those things alive throughout the whole process without going through the pasteurization process? How did you keep them alive for 2 years? A lot of that's secret, but it is also part of the process, Pat.
Is the product now all approved by Agriculture Canada, and it can just be sprayed, or not sprayed, but spread out on any kinds of fields? Is it limited to what type of fields? Who are your, let's talk about who can and will be buying the product and its benefits.
Yeah, so first of all three products are registered.
Okay.
With the CFIA, they are on the list. Gone through all that end of things for sure. So I am a registered fertilizer across all of Canada, and also a registered fertilizer across 10 states right now in the US.
Okay.
So we're not only, we've done some export into Montana and the Pacific Northwest, which will then, I'll may as well interrupt on that question right away. So the fact that I am actually going into Montana and the Pacific Northwest doesn't
Yeah.
mean that is our main market. It is a market that we have used, still will use. I mean, the wonderful thing about a 69-cent dollar, even with a 25% tariff, I'm still ahead of the game. So,
Yeah.
so we do win on that, but the majority of our product is definitely sold in Western Canada,
Yeah.
and it goes to the commercial farmers. The product here, this one that you're seeing like that in that granule form, ends up on as a alternative for anybody who believes in soil health, which is every farmer. They're not out there to nuke their soil, so they believe in soil health. So every farmer out there, and we deal with mostly 5,000 acre plus farmers. So, last year we spread on over 400,000 acres in the Western Canada. So it's not a little bit of product that we're putting out. People believe in it, they keep buying it, and hence the reason we're going and trying to get into this further production so it's easy. So that's the number one customer. The number two customer takes our smaller grade product, which looks like this, and that ends up in the lawn and garden market through one of our wonderful distributors out there, our marketers, who've actually got us the distributor of Nutrient Ag Solutions here over this last few months. And now we're in over 70 retail stores across Western Canada. So pretty cool stuff where not only can you buy our stuff bulk as a normal farmer, but you as the local gardener or somebody with some house plants or a lawn, you can go out and grab our Replenish One product. So
As a non-farmer, but someone with a yard, how would I buy that at like Canadian Tire, or where, like, do I have to go to more of a specialty agriculture place? Like, I'm in Vancouver, and where could I buy it?
it's distributed through a company called Evergrow, which is a division of Nutrien, and
Okay.
so they're actually into all these little stores. And exactly where I'd have to get the list, and I can definitely give that as a follow up. But it is through mostly the local farm supply stores that are the
Okay.
smaller side, or the garden centers, right? So
All
yeah,
right. Okay.
yeah.
And on the farmer side, farmers are smart and frugal. They spend money on what is beneficial. Everybody wants healthier soil, but and presumably that also provides greater yields, greater resilience to the bad bugs. What are the economic benefits for the farmer for using this?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they are frugal, and they also believe in the fact that they're going to be doing this for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're not out to go and wreck things. And so as a farmer myself, and also to our farm clients, one of the main things that they end up seeing is it's no different than us. And I apologize, folks. I mean, the one thing that I am is my background is actual animal nutrition. So when I analogize all the time to probiotics or analogize to balanced diet or to, that kind of thing, it's because that's where I came from. And that's why we actually formulated these products the way we did. So the way I like to think about it, Martin, and the way farmers do, is your top 6 inches of soil is your world's largest feedlot. It's got trillions and trillions and trillions of microbes in it. And if you give those kids the most balanced diet, instead of just straight meat and potatoes, which we've been doing, but if you give them that balanced diet, you hit the nail on the head, is it becomes more resilient to the bad guys. There's bad guys in there, don't get me wrong. But this way, all of a sudden, if a bad fungus shows up at the party, usually my healthier gut profile will be able to battle it and you can bring it down. So for the farmer, what they're seeing with our product on a consistent basis over these last few years is by using our stuff, now all of a sudden their application of fungicide for the bad funguses has been decreased substantially over that year. So that's one thing. Second thing is now my plant is this much healthier because now not only is it getting the meat and potatoes, but it's also starting to get the vegetables and the fruits because we've been back to that balanced diet. And now that plant is healthier, has better what they call Brix levels, which is a sugar level, and then pests that come in and try and eat it just can't. It's not what they want. And so you keep the good guys. I mean, one analogy I have on this, or not analogy, but uh, shoot, I'm having a problem with this one. But one thought process that I had on it is a couple of our farmers who grow canola asked me, "Hey, I have all these little bugs inside my canola. Like, what is this stuff?" So we go and walk out there, and instead of in the way of canola, it's called lagus bugs or flea beetles or diamondback moths come in and cause bad things to your canola plant. Now, in the case of what we saw, we go in there and guess what they are? Nothing but ladybugs. And so we all know in our gardens that we have tons of ladybugs. That's a good thing. And in the case of this guy, everybody around him was physically spraying for these bad bugs, and he didn't have to do any spraying because they were doing nothing but eating the larvae. So it was great to see. And these are the kind of things that happen to our commercial farmers.
Does it result in not just fewer pesticides and that but also higher yield out of the crop, or is it just less bad stuff you have to do to the crop to get your regular yield?
Yeah, so ultimately in your year 1 and 2, you probably have the same yield. I mean, we don't ever decrease, so we're doing an offset. But where they're starting to see their return on investment, which is everybody's thing, is then they start decreasing, like you say, the pesticide and the fungicide use. Each time they do that, of course, it costs them more. As we keep going into year 3, year 4 on this, that healthy soil starts also giving you that extra availability to higher nutrient density product, which gives them higher value for their grain and also will increase the yield over time. So it's a matter of, yeah, it's no different than with us. If we start eating nothing but meat and potatoes, we become anemic. And this is what we've been doing.
All right. So it's obviously not something you just put on 1 year and you maybe do every 2 or 3 years. It sounds like you got to keep eat your veggies, eat your healthy stuff daily to keep it going.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
The thing about cropping and whether or not it's in your garden, you took it off and you ate it. And so the nutrients that you put into it went somewhere else. And
Yeah.
so if you don't keep on replenishing the nutrients, of course, you're going to start mining the soil. And that's really what happens. So you have to keep putting back at least your removal rate every year.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep on getting better, you usually add a little bit more.
Yeah. So does this replace the amount of what farmers would regularly use, or is it an add-on? They have to like spend more on the fertilizer to get it, or I presume it's higher value, so you can maybe charge a little higher price for it. Are you replacing other ones, or is it just another entree or another side dish for the fields?
No, it's a replacement slash supplement. So you
Okay.
can do either way. And that was the other thing that we've done so much about this is the majority, back into the process patent in our secret sauce. So we're that replacement side of it all. So the farmer's budget, and you got to always realize they have a budget of X per acre. And so we always have to get into that X per acre. And if all of a sudden I'm telling them to go X times 10, I'm never selling anything to them.
Yeah.
Right. So in the case of this, what I also had to do is I don't have a nitrogen source. So I have to play nice with chemical fertilizer. Nobody's going to wean themselves off of chemical fertilizer because that's what we've been doing for 70 years and growing crops. So
Yeah.
I can't say it's bad. But
Yeah.
they can say that, hey, if I have something that helps me supplement what I am doing of a chemical fertilizer and I can still use it and not kill the bugs that I'm putting in there, they love that. So it's not an overstepping of their bounds. Their mind isn't going to go crazy. As I mentioned before, we're only one shot a year. Would you or I go and try something different for 1 year based on the fact that that's 1 year out of only 20 that I farm? Am I going
Yeah.
to go screw that up? No. So I got to make sure that my product is got some efficacy and does play nice with the other products out there.
So they use less of the chemical fertilizers. You don't fully replace them. So they have some savings on the chemical fertilizers, and then some of that savings they spend on you, and then they result with a healthier crop and farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is true. And it's and every farmer's got their own risk tolerance, or as they get moving, they understand and they get more comfortable with the product. So all of a sudden they start replacing instead of just 50% of their PKS, they start replacing 75%. Then they start replacing 90%. So it increases and then they see the benefits. And then I have the next guy that all of a sudden he just understands what I'm talking about and is playing the same weird biochemistry land that I do
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, Neil, that makes way too much sense. I've seen it before." And then they just convert 100%, right?
Okay.
So you have everybody, but the wonderful part about our product is it fits the bill for everybody.
Okay. Does it end up being more expensive for the farmer, at least on the expense side? Presumably they get some economic benefit, or are you able to, is it sort of cost neutral for them to switch over to you?
It's essentially cost neutral. I mean, I generally like to, now that we've actually verified our efficacy as much as we have over the last 5 years, we've now priced our product to a point where when I am granulating it through Beiseker, that we are a premium product that ends up asking for 1.2 times normal fertilizer value instead of 1 to 1.
Okay, so 20% higher.
Yeah,
Okay. All
yeah.
right. You mentioned that and I'm trying to do some quick math here. You were used on 400,000 acres. Did I get that right?
Yep.
And that's based on last year's production of 2 tons per hour. Now you're up to 5 tons per hour. So is that like is that like a million acres? I think my quick math would that you have the ability
Yeah,
to
so the two
cover?
tons per hour is just the granulation. So we had two
Oh, okay.
forms of business, and so ultimately, we're selling, we're going to be selling 24,000 tons of products. We'll be relatively probably about 500 to 600,000 acres, but we're shifting from what my original business, which was more on the efficacy side, but it was a aggregate looking product that was a blend of all my herbs and spices before that herbs and spices actually went into the oven. So it was everything you had to bake the cake and blend it up, and then we just went and put it on the ground. And that was what they called our blended business. So it was, of course, lower value, lesser margin per ton, and hence the reason my margins weren't as high. But as soon as I granulate, I can then get into a lower or into a higher value because it now fits the logistic bill of every farmer slash lawn care worker slash whoever. And
Yeah.
now it's regular to what they're used to using. And because it has all these extra micronized pieces and a few extra bugs, that's why we can then increase it to that 1.2 versus in my blended business, I'm at a 0.8. So I'm at a 0.8 to 1 on the blended business, a 1.2 to 1 on my granulated business, if that makes any
Right.
sense, Martin. So that's where we're kind of sitting. And, ultimately I'm shifting that 400,000 acres over to the 1.2 side because it's easier for the farmer. And my
Yeah.
margins go from a 10% to a 35%.
Okay. So that's what we should be expecting out of you is around a 35% margin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm incorporating a bit of a question here from the audience as well as myself. You mentioned US, and right now when we think of US, we think tariffs, and I know reciprocal tariffs, maybe trouble selling down there, but as well, if they're reciprocal tariffs in the US is there's barriers or costs for U.S. exporting fertilizers into Canada, which I'm not too sure how big of a market is that. How does that all affect you? And then as well, there's someone posted a headline here where U.S. is allowing Russia to restore fertilizer sales, which then I know that I'm guessing they would maybe dump at low prices, affecting the Canadian fertilizer market if we wouldn't tariff those as well, just to keep them out. Anyways, a complex situation, but maybe talk a little bit about the world of tariffs, import exports of fertilizers, and how this could possibly affect Replenish.
Well, as they say, I don't think ever waste a good crisis, right?
Yeah.
So in the case, they're the same way. I mean, since this whole unsurety has started to take place, we've actually gained more sales. It's the local guys that buy local side of it all has become a very, very real thing. Yeah, so ultimately, it's been a good side to us. The Russian side of it all, yeah, I mean, they're going to knock down the price and really probably more to phosphate than anything because most of the fertilizer that comes out of Russia is either nitrogen or it's a phosphate-based fertilizer. So those kind of things will definitely show up at the party here. Um, that's why we've really pushed to make sure that we have done that efficacy over these last couple of years and ensure that we can demand that 1.2, that 1.2 to 1 type premium versus our competitors, right? Just proving out that we're our side. It's just chemical. What's been good about what we've been doing here, Martin, over the last couple of years is we've got ourselves out of that typical commodity market where I have to follow what the US is doing, where I have to follow what Russia's doing. No, now it's just a local established side where we can expand anywhere on the globe right now with the same product and does the same thing in India, Egypt, South America. But it's all that local source and that local microbes that play nice in the zoo with the rest of the kids.
All right. Would it have to be, let's say, in India? Would it have to be reformulated with different microbes, given I presume their soil microbiome is probably fairly different than Prairie Canada?
Oh, 100%. I mean, what we'd end up doing over there is you'd end up utilizing more, like, so our whole technology is we'd be able to take it to a place like India, but we'd incorporate the local compost source and
Okay.
still add a few of our microbes that are proprietary.
Yeah.
But that still works fine.
Fertilizer is expensive to ship. How big of a radius do you have out of Beiseker to sell to? Like obviously in retail where there are higher margins and stuff, you're selling all across Western Canada. But for the commercial farmer, are you like from the Ontario border to the Rockies? Is that all your potential market, or would you have to set up more blending facilities across the prairies?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, ultimately, your higher end market, like you say, the lawn and garden. Right now, we're really starting to work into the berry market, so that can go anywhere too. So whether it's the
Okay.
blueberries, the raspberries, they react fantastic to our rebuilder formula, and we've been gaining lots of traction on that world. And so those ones I can ship out of Bicycle all day long, and it doesn't cause any chaos. But you're right. On the commercial side, I'm basically stuck from Winnipeg to Grand Prairie
Okay.
is our radius out of the Bicycle model.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what's wonderful is anybody who comes. So the great thing about our product and our process is we're zero waste. So when Alberta Environment comes and does a visit, they ask on whether you have a wastewater permit, and I'm going, well, we have none. There is no
Yeah.
wastewater even. And so they look around and they go, like, is this only it? So our footprint for 24,000 ton, if people come and we welcome people to come and visit our facility because it's great if you touch, feel, and smell. And, we're right in the town of Beiseker. We don't get complaints on odors. Nobody knows we're even really there other than we employ a bunch of people. And what's great about it is my footprint to actually produce this 24,000 ton is only 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
So for me to go and move it into another spot somewhere else is quite simple. The process is simple, but it has those little nuances that people can't follow and do themselves.
What would the to set up an equivalent facility wherever in Ontario or that or just rebuild one? What is the let's say excluding building and land costs, just all the equipment, blending, storage, and that equipment? What would it cost to replicate that facility about?
Oh, shoot. It's kind of a loaded question because everybody's got their own little scenarios and what they want to do. Like right now, we're physically looking at doing another potential expansion in Ontario, which I think I can say that, but as a
Well, you
potential
just did,
expansion.
so
And I just did anyways. But that end of things, as long as the infrastructure, as far as the building and everything there, you're looking at $5 million or so to
okay.
basically set it up. Yep.
Speaking, since you mentioned some dollar figures here, there's a question here. What is the status of the $7 million grant? Has Replenish Nutrients received the money yet?
Yeah, so the $7 million grant is through Emissions Reduction Alberta. And that was for the Bolt facility up in the northern Peace Country. And the biggest thing that we've been waiting for is still our phosphate source that we're going to use hasn't been developed yet. I mean, everything's about permits and everything else. So we're still sitting on it. The ERA is still allowing us to sit on it. And we're just waiting for our partners to get the phosphate deposit ready, and away we go. Now, that being said, we have developed this new product that basically I think we can add into that, and we've been in discussions to see if we can actually do this, do a different type of product up in that part of the world. So, long
Okay.
story, long answer to the question. We haven't received the grant yet, but we haven't lost it either.
Okay, so it's on hold until you get your, sorry, which mineral are you waiting for
The phosphate
the
production, that was the
phosphate?
main piece of that grant. So, yep.
Okay. And the grant money will be used to do what? What are you doing with that 7 million?
It's for building a processing facility. So it is through our process patent and then
Okay.
developing a 50,000 ton facility in the Peace Country. Yep.
Okay. All right. So then that would expand your footprint and then
Yep.
so you get something a little further west
Yeah.
and north
Yeah.
there.
And I mean, you have this huge landlocked land base in the Peace area, which up to 10 million arable acres,
Yeah.
that really is the highest price fertilizer in all of North America. So it's a great spot to land when we do. So
New products. Are you developing new products that, I don't know, would be applicable for other types of crops or other regions or what opportunities do you have for growth there?
yeah, I mean, what we wanted to do was ensure that, say, if I'm getting rock out of Northern Ontario or out of Montana, like we're talking rock phosphate, can my process actually do the same with rock out of Florida or Morocco or Egypt or as we move this staple around and hope to move our licensing types thought process across the globe. And
Yeah.
so we've been doing a lot of procuring of these rocks from different parts of the globe and seeing if it actually reacts the same in our process, and it has. It's quite amazing how you have some little nuance in the microbial populations, but
Yeah.
all in all, they almost always follow suit.
Okay.
So
All
very,
right.
very cool. And it gives us that ability to potentially, I'm not going to say I'm licensing tomorrow, but it's our
Yeah.
part of our deck is saying that we do want to license as we get going. So
Okay, so you have global ambitions, and that would you replenish itself would not be building facilities and sales channels throughout the world. You could potentially license it and then let your local partners who know the clients and so forth do the rest of it, and then you would clip something off the revenues or something like that.
100%. Yep.
Okay. All right. Um, since I've mentioned a few words that questions are related to, blended revenues went down for several quarters now. Why aren't you sold out here, and why don't farmers buy as much as they did later? So,
Yeah, we've just really shifted our focus from the blended side of it all. It's our revenues were great, but our margin wasn't.
Okay.
And for the amount of infrastructure, time, effort, everything that went in there, we just kept our main farmers that really had the infrastructure themselves to do it
Yeah.
and focused heavily on ensuring that we could do the 35% margin product, which is
Yeah.
the granulated. So that is the main reason. It's nothing more than just a shift in focus on really what is best for our time. Our team is small. There's only 4 of us that are in the C-suite and only a couple people on the ground. So we need to make sure that we focus on what is actually going to give us our bigger bang for the buck moving forward.
You are telling us that the granulated fertilizers are sold out? Are there plans to run 24/7 to get out more production?
Yeah, yeah, no, that is the plan. When this thing rocks and rolls at full capacity here in April, we're physically going to run 24. It won't be 24/7. It'll be 24 5 and a half, if that makes sense. We got
Yeah.
to shut down for the weekend for maintenance and then back on again. So,
Yeah.
so that is where we go, and that's where we can get up to that 24,000 tons capacity, almost up to 30, I think, if we really pushed it.
All right. And the application is done in the springtime or but you said there's an annual application. Does it matter when it's done? And if it's just one time a year, does that mean you build up inventory for 10 months of the year and get a fat balance sheet with lots of inventory and then the sales cycle is just trucks out the door for 2 months or 3 months to get it to the farmers as fast as possible? How does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't matter when you apply it. I mean, the great thing about the product is it's really is inert until it hits the dirt. The mineral nutrients of it all. I mean, we like to apply it in the fall because that's when the farmer has the most time. So he
Okay.
does that. We're doing lots of application right now as we speak. We also do in season application. So that question we can actually apply all time. Doesn't matter when. It's not going to run off like chemical fertilizer where it ends up in the Fraser River or the Bow River or.
Yeah.
It gets used when it needs to be used. So there's the number one side of it all. The other side is we've developed these markets with the berry type people, with the Evergrows, where they take product in January, February for the bag market and for that berry type market and the specialty products. So they'll take it in the beginning. My other partners in the distribution world start taking it March, April, May for the course this side. And then my hay guys start taking it for June, July, and then the whole cycle starts all over again. So it's that's been the other thing that we've been really working hard on is making sure that we've developed the markets where we can keep the product off the shelf and out of our inventory side all the time.
So I guess the quiet season when you're not selling any is, I don't know, from November to February or something. There's not really any. Are you planning on just building inventory of that time? That can be quite expensive and you get big warehouses of it. What is the thought on the winter time?
Winter's an anomaly. So
Yeah.
you get into November, December when you think you shouldn't be busy.
Yeah.
But farming 101 in Western Canada in general, the majority of the farms have a December 31st year end. And so guess what they're doing right on about December 30th is they're going to their fertilizer dealer to make sure they spend the rest on their that. So a lot of November, December, guys have already gone. They see what their revenues are. So they're buying inputs for next spring, anybody who has a tax situation, right?
Okay. So
So
it's actually
ironically, it's actually pretty busy.
okay. All
Yep.
right. Okay. And then so you get a couple of months where are you basically just running maybe not your 24 5 and a half model, but are you basically running production 12 months a year?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Going back to that grant, another question here. Are there any other milestones besides what you mentioned before the 7 million can be accessed?
Yeah, I mean it's a matching side. So of course, we have to go in and spend 7 million bucks, and they match the $7 million. So there's a few milestones that have to happen. one of the main things is getting us back into anybody who's on this call, like, knows that I'm not cash flow positive right now. So I got
Yeah.
to get back into there. Biceker does that for us. And then it's a lot simpler for us to finalize the rest of this and, when it's time. So the debt financing piece, which we have a term sheet in hand, but of course it's all related to XYZ, right?
Yeah. Given Beiseker goes up to full production in April as planned, does that mean you're essentially cash flow positive in April, May once it starts running at that capacity?
Yeah, Q2 gets us into cash flow positive. So that is the whole gamut. I mean, when I mentioned when we had our thing, a lot of our bigger dollar items that we had purchased here a few years back, there is some things that turn lucky. And one of the things was our grinding capacity, which we thought was only good for 2 tons an hour, turns out to be good for 8 tons an hour when we actually did this right. And so now all of a sudden, $1 million asset that I had in a grinder ends up turning into a great thing. So what we did find out, if I'm chugging along at 2 tons an hour, Martin, we're not going to be, we're kind of holding water and life is there, and I have to still find other capacity. At 5 tons per hour, it puts us 100% into this cash flow positive piece. And now I'm commercial, and now people believe me when they want to actually do a licensing deal.
Is it correct that the granulated fertilizer is more for private usage and not for farmers?
Oh, the granulated is almost 100% for farmers. So
Okay.
the lawn care side of it all. So when I showed you these bigger granules, this is for the farmer, and this is what we aim to get into our production facility all the time, and it's about a 2 miller granule. What's great about that is, and what we've done is we've developed the market to the lawn care side, which is the smaller granule, which is the same granule as the big one, except
Yeah.
that of course it went through a screener, and the smaller one doesn't go through the farmer's system because it's a different size, whereas it'll go through that. So it just happens to be that's 10% of my production level, and then we can turn around and basically 10% of my sales hopefully end up in the lawn care side.
How many employees do you have?
Oh, we have 6 people on the basically on the management slash sales side, and then on the employee side for the plant, another 9 guys out there.
What is the status of the Bethune project? Are you still expecting to do that in royalty or JV strategy?
Yeah, I mean, that side of it all is we've been working on that final product, and Bethune is 100% shooting for that Super KS product, which is one of our 3 lines, because of course the Bethune project is a potash mine, so it's got to be mostly potash. So it will. We've now figured out that process and how to do it. That was this one that I showed you. It's more of a pelleted product. So now that we've actually got that dialed in, we can start looking at more of probably a JV side on that. And again, no guarantees, but that's likely the way we go in Bethune.
Has your key vendor for the rock phosphate given a timeline for when their permits are expected to be received?
He's here tomorrow. I can tell you exactly, but he is developing, or he is hanging out with the Department of, I think, Mines and Energy or whatever it happens to be, as of tomorrow. So I'm going to know a lot more by the end of tomorrow on that timeline. Sorry to be vague.
You should have some more information soon, so
Yeah.
that's great. Um, with you're getting the grants that are dependent upon a couple of things, including matching funds. You can get some loans. Um, do you expect, or are you trying to work it so no more equity needs to be raised, or is there possibility of an equity raise in the future to help sort of fuel growth so you can just start charging ahead faster without sort of being so capital constrained?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody sees what we just did here now. I mean, we were at a wonderful 4 cent share price forever, which an equity raise was not an option. So we
Yeah.
managed to do I think, a very good job of expanding Biceker internally and also through some debt financing that we just managed to finalize to get Beiseker done, and without actually getting any shareholders, including myself, diluted, right? So that's been there. Would we ever do an equity raise? I think if anything was at the right time and the share price is right, you can't ever take that off the table.
How long would it take to set up a new facility?
We have, so the bolt wise is pretty quick. I mean, we have the permit there. It's actually already a building. Most of the infrastructure is hanging there. So
Yeah.
it all depends on the situation. But in the bolt wise, if we found the right timing and everything, that would really only be a 12-month facility and we'd be up in operation.
Okay.
So there's a scenario like that. From scratch, permit wise and stuff, it's all, you know how things go, Martin. You can get stuck in permitting forever. But if you have
Yeah.
a permit sitting on there in your greenfield, you probably about the same, about an 18-month period.
Okay. But when you say greenfield, that's putting up a building and then going
Yep.
from there. If you've got
Yep.
a facility, okay. And then it's lead time for equipment to get that in, and then installation and
Yep.
so forth. Okay.
Yep.
All right. There are no more one someone's commenting that the investor deck on your website's a little aged,
Outdated.
a little
Yes.
outdated, and if there'll be a fresh one up in the near term.
Yes, there will. We've actually been working on that the last couple of weeks here, and I been a little too busy trying to get Bicycle rolling to finalize that thing before Martin and I got onto this call today. So,
All right.
but it is coming.
All right. We've covered a lot of ground. I can't think of any other questions. So we should wrap it up here. Any final comments to sort of tie a bow on it, or to perspective to leave viewers and investors with as we wrap it up here?
Yeah, I think the final comment is as we started, it's been 3 years since we've talked and we're still here. So that means my product works. B means we're a very resilient company as far as the guys that are in here. We're 100% focused to make sure as shareholders get value. Especially the ones that have stuck around with us. I mean, we 100% appreciate that, and we will ensure that happens. It's going to be a lot of fun here over the next month and a half as I actually finally fill granulated orders that have been on the books for the last forever. And, that's really what turns on the tap to everything else that goes on. As I mentioned before, us being at 5 ton per hour now puts us at a commercial level and not just a pilot scale level. So now people believe me when they're talking to me on saying, hey, do I license? Do I joint venture? Do I? And that capital then becomes available to us and we can expand this thing, I think, in a very rapid fashion.
Neil, thank you. That was great. Appreciate the update. Congrats. You've been busy. So thanks. Hopefully it won't be 3 or almost 3 years until we talk again. Cheers. All the best.
I think we'll try and make this a little more often because I think there's a lot of exciting things coming down the pipe.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a great day.
Hey, right on. Thank you.